Schrangerade took first blood at Spa, but Korteniemi fought back at Suzuka. With a second and a first, the Finn finds himself once again leading the points. However, another of his rivals from last season, Hisada, continues to use consistency to stay within range of our reigning champion. Will Togo manage to make himself the third different winner, or will Topi use his momentum to his advantage? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Reese Gardner. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Brands Hatch is a fitting track for this car, but it's also an incredibly difficult one to master. Let's head to our track guide to see what makes it so tough. Welcome to Brands Hatch. When popular British racing circuits get listed, this track just to the southeast of London often finds itself near the top. The extensive history of the venue has meant that many famous names in racing have ran laps here. But the stats make it sound deceptively simple, with the Grand Prix and Indy course having 9 and 6 turns respectively. Laps might be short, but they're also fast, and the corners are often a challenge to get right. As you'd expect, that means passing is quite difficult, with most drivers leaning towards sending one up the inside at Druids. You might occasionally see overtakes into the first corner, Paddock Hill Bend, but the blind apex and gigantic drop in elevation make that an errand for only the brave. Many of the corner names pay tribute to famous British drivers from the past decades, such as Hill, Surtees, Sterling, and Clark. In fact, the fame extends beyond the drivers, but to the cars as well, with this place seeing everything from Formula One to Formula Ford, touring cars, GT cars, motorcycles, and even rallycross. It's a gorgeously scenic venue where lush trees envelop the back half of the course, while the front half is mostly encapsulated inside a natural amphitheater. This makes it extremely popular with race fans who can see a majority of the circuit from many seating positions. With a great location near a major metropolitan hub, a spectator-friendly layout, and an experience that challenges drivers, you can see why this place remains abuzz with racing to this day. Well, Happy New Year, Reese. And I guess to head into the future, we go back in time a little bit with these cars, but what can we expect with both a classic circuit and a classic machine?
I think we can expect some fantastic racing, Joe. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Brands Hatch, it's got plenty of opportunities for slipstreaming down the Clearways Straight, the back straight up to Hawthorne Bend as well, maybe down the Brabham Straight as well, but as the track guide highlighted, it is pretty difficult to pass into Paddock Hill Bend, but I think you'll be seeing the majority of the overtakes here being done at Druids, Surtees, and Hawthorne Bend. The drivers are going to be completing 24 circuits of this track tonight.
That should be fun to watch, but before we get to the racing, we've got our championships to go over, and in the F1 championship, as I mentioned, Korteniemi back up at the top once again. Togo Hisada still trailing behind him, with Roman Pavlowski not too far behind as well. Laust Olsen not been doing too bad here early in the season, jumping over from the Camel Series and joining in the fun with Chris Murakami rounding out your top 5, but that's just after 2 rounds. That could also change around pretty quickly. We have a F2 championship. Reese, how's that one sitting right now?
Well, Jorge Nieva leading by 11 points there from Randy Hoff, Bill Wright and Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado very close there for third as well. Eugenio Massa still very much in the fight for the top 5 too. We might see that order shuffle around at some point tonight. We've also got the Nations Cup, Joe.
Yep, and as you'd expect at the top of that, it is indeed Finland, with Japan trailing. It's pretty similar to what we've got in the F1 points. Germany sits in third place, with Spain and the United States trailing very closely to one another, and we'll see if those change positions before this is done. You touched on the race distance, but for viewers that are not familiar with this series, Reese, what do we have in store?
Well, 24 laps, open setup and no spare car, as you can see. So the drivers have all of the opportunity to adjust how their cars drive, but this being a fragile 1960s racing machine, you catch the grass on the edges of this circuit. It's grass all the way around here at Brands Hatch. You're not going to get an opportunity to get back out there in a fresh car. You're going to have to be spending a bit of time in the pits getting it repaired.
talked about the grass right up to the edges of the circuit. And we saw from the onboard, there's a few spots here, Reese, where they've got those curved braking zones and curved acceleration zones. I have to imagine that's not going to play all that well with this car.
Nah, this thing is difficult to drive at the best of times. You see the treaded tyres, no aerodynamic devices to speak of. This is very much in the age of racing before aerodynamics were really a thing, and suspension technology has advanced quite a bit in the intervening 6 decades as well. Chris Murakami, it seems, is making short work of this lap, trying his best to keep the momentum up across this back section of the circuit. The Grand Prix loop, which was added in 1960, it's been through a couple of changes over the years, but it still retains its fast-flowing nature. You've got to have a lot of confidence in the car around that section.
Absolutely. So many blind corners here as you fly through the trees. And as he comes out of Sterling, up towards the last corner through Clark, let's see what he's got underneath him. This will be his first flying lap. A little bit of a slide as he comes over the rise there through Clark, up the Brabham straight. He crosses the line. And his first one is going to be a 26.5. That is not even going to be close to our provisional pole sitter, who right now is Michael de Turk.
And Togo Hisada, just as you say, that goes to provisional pole at 1 minute 24.7. Then Teemu Vaskilampi, 24.566. We're seeing some very quick times being set here. Topi Kortenniemi, who won last week's broadcasted race at Suzuka, currently in 3rd.
All right, then. So we're seeing some familiar faces up at the top, but we're still missing a number of people. Waiting on guys like Ryan Walker, Karjalainen, Roman Pavlowski, who we saw at amongst the top 5 in the points. 25.4 for Roman, actually. So we watch Vaskilampi on your screen. That'll put Roman into 7th. So not a stellar run for him, but Vaskilampi right now coming through Pilgrim's Drop and into Hawthorne. This is into that back section we were talking about.
Absolutely. Let's see how well he does. Oh, he's lifted. I think there might have been an off-track somewhere along there, or maybe doesn't have enough fuel to complete his qualifying run. That's the last we're going to be seeing of him. But Togo Hisada, well, he was threatening Topi Kortenniemi for the win at Suzuka last week. He's still trying to break through for his 2nd broadcast win in the Grand Prix Legends Series, driving that Honda livery. Certainly looks wonderful out there. What's this lap going to be? 24.7 is the time he needs to improve on, and it's going to be a 24.2. That is going to be provisional pole for Togo Hisada.
And by some margin, my goodness, Kortenniemi crosses 24.9. He's not able to match it. Hisada is looking quick today. In the practice session that I popped into before we came live here, I did see that Togo was leading the timesheets. Looks like Tixier goes onto the front row with his 2nd time as they now start streaming across for the last chance at trying to improve your position. We're going to watch Karjalainen to see what his 2nd lap holds as he comes through Sheen.
Oh, and just touching the white line on the exit. You see how the car dips on the entry into Sterling's corner. That corner's banked. You can carry so much more speed through it than you think, but you got to get the exit just right. Through clearways, the car seems to be in good order, and then out of the final corner he comes 10th. Well, he needs to improve on a 25.2, and it's looking very close in the low 25s in the last half of the top 10. Into the 24s for him. 24.7. That's going to be good enough for 4th.
A big improvement there for the 10 machine. Do we have anybody else that's able to complete a lap? And it looks like no. That is everybody. So with that, it means that our grid is now set here for round 3 of the Grand Prix Legends Series. And at the top of it, Togo Hisada looks positioned to try and take the win that he missed out on back at his home track in Suzuka. Sebastian Tixier is going to be challenging him from that front row, with Teemu Vaskilampi coming in from 3rd. Karjalainen starts 4th, with Kortenniemi mysteriously low in qualifying today, only 5th for him. Let's see if he can improve upon that, as John Olsen will start to his outside and Ryan Walker will be in 7th. Roman Pavlowski starts from 8th. Billy Bob Wright will be P9, and you've got Michael de Turk rounding out your top 10.
F2 leader Jorge Nieva will start out of 11th alongside Miro Hrashki, and then it's Robert Plumley and Gary Quellen sharing row 7 there. Rob Swindles and Antonio Rice, 15th and 16th. Matthew Maudsley's going to share row 9 with Laust Olsen, who we had on the Zoom feed last week at Suzuka. Big concentration on his face. Perhaps assuming there'll be more of the same here tonight, with Jeff Saunders and Chris Murakami rounding out the top 20.
Rowley Wallbank starts from 21st with Gary Ho in 22nd. Andre Bruno, P23. Then it's Randy Huff in the 24th spot, followed by Eugenio Massa. You've got just a couple more that set times. Jason Steinhurst, Gary Anderson, and Magnus Einerson. And from there, it's drivers who will be starting from the back of the field with Don Good, Kaj Hansen, and Richard Bruinsma. So 31-car field out here today. It is going to be packed in what is a relatively short lap around here. And it's not just overtaking for position, I imagine, then. These 24 laps might see some lap traffic play an effect on this one, Reese.
Yeah, certainly, and you better be hoping that you don't come up on lapped cars around the top of the Grand Prix loop going through the forest, particularly through Hawthorne Bend and the section just after it. That section of the circuit, I mean, Brands Hatch, it has elevation changes the whole way round, but they're especially evident in that back half of the circuit. You've got to be very careful about how you set up your car going into every corner around here.
Indeed, and they now start to grid up. It is pretty good conditions for the drivers is the good news, as it's about 83 Fahrenheit on the track, about 28 Celsius, and very little wind comparatively, especially for cars that do not have aerodynamics to worry about. But they do have to worry about trying to get off this grid, which is curved, and so some drivers will have to try to crank some steering in as they take off. Around here, you can see them starting to work their way out there. Just a few more to go, and then we will get rolling here today. Courtney might lose the points lead if this grid is anything to go by, and that really is his maximum pace starting from the 5th position today, Reese.
It's going to be a tough job for him. He'll be hoping that there's problems for the drivers up ahead. Togo Hisada, well, he didn't get the best run off the line at Spa a couple of weeks ago, and I think Courtanimi might be hoping that the same happens to him here tonight. But Togo Hisada showed excellent form last week at Suzuka. He'll certainly be gunning for the win here, but that's a very tightly packed grid, and we're about to go green. This is going to get intense on lap 1. Paddock Hill Bend, there's not much space to be running side by side. It being off camber as well could cause some issues.
It's not uncommon to see drivers get tangled amongst one another, not just there too, but up into Druids. We'll see that pretty often, but it looks like everybody is out there. So the engines start to rev as the lights come up, and the green flag is out. Once again, doesn't look like the best of starts for Hisada. Oh, but the second phase for Tixier, he starts to slip up. Here goes Vascalampi to the inside. Going to take second away, but he goes a little bit deep into the corner behind him. I'm not seeing any issues quite yet. Vascalampi continues to fight up into Druids and is going to keep carrying on side by side all the way around.
Goodness me, almost banging wheels there. It looks like everyone... Oh no! Sebastian Tixier and Topi Courtanimi have come together coming into Graham Hill Bend. That is absolutely not what any of them would want. More cars going into the incident. That's a bit of a pile-up.
Oh no, 2 separate incidents may be affected by that first one. Courtanimi able to get it going, but Tixier came to a halt right on the racing line. At first, everybody was able to avoid, but it couldn't last forever, and a few got wadded up behind him. In the meantime, Hisada continues to lead by about half a second over Vascalampi, who are already pulling away from those behind by a full second over Kaljalainen.
Everyone going into single file. No, there's been another incident. Jorge Nieva and Robert Plumley have come together right up in the middle of the Grand Prix loop, and that is going to be Nieva pulling over to the side of the circuit. Looks like that might be a retirement for him. Way too much damage.
Oh, wow. So leaders in both F1 and F2 championships have had bad starts, and there's the incident on the back half of the course. Nieva looks like he just, he must have had his suspension hit, because then he starts grabbing immediately.
Yeah, suspension damage, very easy to have happen in these cars.
And Plumley was able to keep going, so he got a little bit more lucky. Just
goodness.
right up the backside. and wheels lifted off the ground. So yeah, that's pretty much for sure. Even if he didn't get damage on the suspension, that would have hurt the gearbox, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Engine and internals fully exposed in these cars, so you want to try and keep damage there to a minimum. But checking back in with our two leaders, Togo Hisada and Teemu Vaskilampi, they're making their way around the Grand Prix loop again. Had just come out of Hawthorne and coming down into the run-up to Dingledale Corner. A big drop here. Awesome to see, but they are really making good time on the rest of the field. Karjalainen not able to make much of an inroads, and Mr. Pawlowski here, he's got a nice gap back to Ryan Walker, and Walker's had a pretty good first lap as well. He's made up 2 positions.
Yes, and I noticed that myself as he was sitting up amongst the top 5 in the warm-up, but has clearly improved upon his qualifying. For those wondering about Kortaniemi, our points leader, he's up to 16th right now, is continuing to try and make his way through the field. But as actually we hop over to him, looks like he's going to get another one right now. There goes Jeff Saunders, who's not going to fight him too hard, make that 15th for the Finn.
And Pawlowski there setting the fastest lap. First driver into the 24s on race conditions, doing quite well. Sebastian Tixier, who came together with Mr. Kortaniemi on lap 1, currently in 10th place. So 8 down from where he started, and we'll see how much damage Sebastian has picked up. Doesn't seem like all that much because he's still setting reasonable times.
That car looks golden, literally and figuratively, as the number 7 carries on. We're on lap 3 already for our drivers, and we've seen a number of tangles. There's actually a few others that we haven't been able to cover, as some drivers have found themselves either spun or having to take a tow to pit lane. I think Rob Swindells is our latest of that. He'll get it going coming into Surtees. We had a little bit of a dust kicked up here around the number 6. That's Michael de Turk. We're seeing an influx of the Lotus 79 drivers coming in, which is, I'm sure, an interesting transition. There's a car off in front of de Turk now, and that is, that's Pawlowski.
Oh dear. Yeah, okay, so I think going a little bit too hard into Jim Clark curve. Looked like Roman actually missed the braking point, and he tried his best to turn the car in. We'll see it on the replay here, trying his best to stay ahead of the driver behind, but the rear end kicked out on entry. You'll see it right here, and then from that point on, there's not much you can do. No downforce or slick tires to save you, just slithering off into the gravel.
Thankfully kept it out of the barriers, so he'll carry on in 7th place. Gives one to Michael de Turk, who now promotes himself up into 6th position, but Hisada, as you can see on the tower, is still our leader in this race. Only by those 0.4 of a second. This hasn't changed a whole lot between himself and Vaskilampi, but they are finding Timo Karjalainen getting ever closer with each lap. He's got it down to half a second as well.
Very good times being set here for Karjalainen, and his last lap was a 24.594. Excellent pace there from the Finn, and they are leaving the rest of the field behind. Ryan Walker in 4th place. He's not even in the shot now. We're only 4 laps into this race, and the top 3 are slipping away.
That's good news for those 3, but everybody else is going to have to hope for yet more problems for those up at the front if they want a chance at the victory here today. Down into Pilgrim's climb here, and you can see the lap differences between Hisada and Karjalainen, who has definitely been chipping away. Big inroads on lap 3, it looks like. Almost half a second gained right there alone. Up towards Surtees and into the Grand Prix loop. Let's see if any of them can get a good run up and over the hill.
Good exit from every one of them there. Maybe a bit slightly worse exit from Karjalainen, but Vaskilampi well within the draft here of Togo Hisada and making up time on the brakes coming into Hawthorns as well, almost bumper to bumper at the apex. So Hisada, it seems, not entirely strong around this southern end of the circuit, but he seems to be doing enough to stay ahead through the start-finish section, which is really where it's important, where the passes are most likely to be made.
Absolutely, and as we ride on board with Togo looking back, they come out of Sterling And there you can see a glance at his trailing rival, Vascalopi. Needs the good exit here onto the Brabham straight. He's still within about 0.3 of a second. That's not going to be close enough for a lunge, at least this time. He continues to threaten any little slip up just like that, as there's a bobble now from Hisada down through Paddock Hill Bend.
And isn't it amazing how much suspension travel these cars go through down that start-finish stretch? It really shows off how bumpy these tracks really are. And Kuku Hisada extending the width of the circuit as much as he possibly could there. There's a little bit of AstroTurf on the entry to Graham Hill that he used, but for a second I had a bit of a heart attack moment. I thought he was going to spin on entry, but back onto the straight once again. It actually looks to me like Hisada got a slightly better exit that time.
Yeah, he definitely kept himself well away. And yeah, you talked about using that little bit of AstroTurf. These drivers find every inch that they can use because they need it to really carry the speed. And we talked about lap traffic. Well, they're already approaching Gary Ho in the 28s. They might catch him at a good spot here if they don't get up to him until after Sterling, which looks to be the case. But will they catch him? Oh,
he spins.
Spin. Oh.
Well, that was convenient for the leaders, wasn't it? Didn't have to worry about him getting out of the way.
But not that great for Gary Ho, who has decided to take a tow, and he might be done for today. We'll see if he can get that car back out here to try to continue to compete. Starting lap 7 now for Hisada, looking for that second ever victory here in the Grand Prix Legends Series. But he's having to fight off a pair of Finns once again for that win. Up into Druids. Vascalopi has been hovering at this 3 to 4 tenths of a second marker for some laps now, just making sure to keep him in check.
And it's all going to be about pressure, I think, at this stage. You know, if he can stay close to Hisada, try and pressure him into a mistake, that will probably be where the move is made, because as things stand, Hisada's pace is just fantastic at the moment. He's not quite able to make inroads as Vascalopi, but as you can see, once again, he is much stronger on the brakes. He's firing that car into every single turn, as this looks like quite the battle here, with John Olsen up ahead.
Yep, this is for 4th place. Ryan Walker, who's managed to sneak himself into there, now has a bit of a train forming. That's Olsen, as you mentioned, and Michael de Turk. There are also Roman Pawlowski catching back up. Remember, there was a mistake earlier, so this is a recovery drive for the 13 car, so might become a 4-car fight soon as we now hop on board with Roman, a longtime driver in this series.
That's quite the view here of this battle as Hisada steals away the fastest lap. 1:24.5, not bad at all, but Pawlowski will be... Oh, there we go! Into Ryan Walker goes John Olsen, and right into the tyre barrier. That car is done, I think.
Not sure if he outbraked himself or what exactly happened, but it was very sudden. Just cars tangling as soon as I look out of the corner of my eye, and he went straight to the barrier. Thankfully for fans of Walker, he's able to carry on, but it looks like he might be damaged a bit as he's already been passed by both Pawlowski and de Turk.
Yeah, that's a shame. We'll get the replay there, and seems that Ryan Walker actually looked like he might have slightly run wide on the entry to Paddock Hill Bend, but Olsen was firing it towards the inside to take it. And we'll get a view here of Olsen making his way in. There you go. And they bang wheels, and there's only one way that can end.
A good view of the underside of the car that you're not supposed to see. And yeah, it looks like maybe that extra momentum sent him off the course, and that's what cost him those 2 spots. Michael de Turk now up into P4 after starting this race in 10th position. And I mentioned earlier, he comes over from the Lotus 79s. You talk about the cars being very different. In 11 years, they went from absolutely no downforce to gobs and gobs of downforce. So this is a huge transition for those that are coming over.
Yeah, it's a completely different driving style as well. You know, the Lotus 79, one of the first cars to really make use of ground effect aerodynamics, and you have to run the suspension quite firm in the Lotus 79 to take advantage of all of that downforce and keep the floor sealed. But the 49, it's all mechanical grip, and even then, you don't have much of it thanks to those treaded tires.
Well, let's see how much of it they get through Hawthorne, because Vascalampi seems to have figured it out pretty well. He does gain a little bit, but he was a little too far behind on this one. We're not even halfway through this race yet, so there's still plenty of opportunity for Teemu to try and get this lead away from Toga Hisada as they work their way through Sheen and into Sterling once again. Yet more traffic starting to flash by on our cameras. This time it's Gary Anderson up ahead.
Yeah, they've got quite a bit of a gap ahead to Anderson though, so they shouldn't have to worry about him for a few more laps unless there is a mistake from the number 27. We got two cars in the pits. One of them, of course, is John Olsen. The other is Jorge Nieva, as that's the number 16 of Bill Wright, who's had a bit of an off, and that looks to be in the area around.
That's Sheen.
Yeah, around about Sheen. Let's see what happened to him here on the replay. Was this catching the grass on the entry into the corner? Coming over the rise. Oh, it actually looked like the rear end got light over that crest.
That is a very scary turn in this car. Did he hit anything? No, he did not. Wow, he did a good job of saving it, but he lost a lot of positions, having to sit and wait patiently before an opening showed itself, and he fell to 16th in the end. But fair play to Billy Bob for making sure he didn't cause anybody more woes by pulling out in front of them all around that very blind and fast turn as we come back to our lead two once again.
Just making their way up to Dingle Dell, where Bill Wright had his off just a few moments ago, but they both keep it nice and clean. In terms of Timo Karjalainen, well, he's really fallen off the wagon in the last couple of laps. Remember, he was right with them before, and oh my goodness, a little bit of lap traffic for them there. That's Jason Steinhurst with some heavy damage. Vascalampi having to go wide there. He's lost some valuable time to Togo Hisada.
Racing gods have been kind to Togo up to this point. It gives him some breathing room that I'm sure he desperately would love. But look at this, Deturk and Pavlowski. So Roman is clawed forwards and is now on the attack. Oh, as he has a little bit of a slip-up coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, but doesn't hurt him too badly. Stays within about 7/10. And they haven't dropped Ryan Walker, so my reports of damage are a bit premature. Ryan is still in the hunt here.
And these guys are going to have to start worrying about Sebastian Tixier soon as well. The recovering Sebastian Tixier from the incident on lap 1. Toby Cortanimi has also been making an excellent recovery. Tixier currently in 7th, and Cortanimi has advanced up to 8th place, made up bulk positions. So look for them to start trying to carve their way through this battle pattern.
And I think that qualifying was definitely not representative as we get Matthew Maudsley with a bit of an awkward rejoin, and that looks to me, it looks to be down before Surtees. Let's see.
Just out of Graham Hill, looks like he actually caught the AstroTurf. Well, he ran very wide on the exit, and it's difficult to tell where the AstroTurf ends and the grass begins, but Matthew Maudsley definitely finding out.
Slips off to the inside as he hit it. Nope, just barely enough room, and he stays out of trouble. I was about to say, before we went to the replay, Topi Cortinemi definitely must have had a problem in his qualifying, because his fastest lap is a 24.578. Right now, the fastest lap overall, Hisada 24.576. So Topi's coming. If it wasn't for his mistake and his bad qualifying, he could have been vying for this win, I think.
And don't forget, look, you can see it on the nose. He's carrying damage on that car as well. So considering that, Cortanimi might be even faster than we're seeing at the moment. He's just not getting the opportunity to show it. But we'll see what happens. Making his way through the Surtees corner, out onto the Grand Prix loop again. He isn't close enough to Gary Anderson, lapped car number 27, to get any semblance of draft, but Sebastian Tixier is definitely looking to be lining up a position change soon. He's right on the back of Ryan Walker now.
Indeed, and I'm sure Tixier is aware of how fast Itopi is and is trying to make inroads while he can, put some cars between himself and our current reigning champion, Cortiemi, really sliding it through some of these corners like you have to in this car. Almost rally style in some cases. And jumping up to Pawlowski once more. They go by another lapped car. I said it would have an effect, and we're seeing a lot of lapped cars here. This one, Kaj Hansen, who is going to try and stay off to the side for multiple drivers.
I think a big part of why we're seeing so much lap traffic is the fact that so many drivers have been making mistakes on just catching the edges of the grass or losing it over crests and the like. We've seen a lot of drivers going for spins, which has lost them bulk time, and they don't have much other option than to get in the way of the leaders at some point. But on board here with Roman Pawlowski chasing down Michael de Turk and looking quite fast. De Turk was half a tenth faster on the last lap, but Pawlowski in the draft. Have a look at this. Let's see how close he ends up getting into Hawthorns. They both end up being very ginger on the brakes, but de Turk a little bit wide. Maybe there's a couple of chinks starting to show in his armor.
I think they're good, and from what I know of Pawlowski, he's a pretty fierce fighter, so de Turk's going to have his work cut out for him. So we watch from his onboard, looking back over the suspension, getting close through Sterling now. I don't think he got the best of exit, so Pawlowski drops off a little bit, coming up towards the final crest. This is where he needs to absolutely launch it, and I think he's got it. Does he dare send it up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend? He's close enough. He could have a try, but he decides not to.
Yeah, you can see him hugging the inside of the curb on the start-finish stretch as well to try and get some extra momentum, but hadn't worked out for him. De Turk doesn't seem to be able to drop Pawlowski at the moment, but it's all about ebb and flow. You know, I've noticed in a lot of these battles, it's usually a case of one driver is stronger on entry, but the other stronger on exit.
Oh, and behind them, I think Tixier is finally going to get past Ryan Walker. He didn't fight that. Oh, did he need to fight it? Because going wide into there, Sebastian almost gives the spot back, but no, he is going to claim 6th place. Ryan Walker saw the writing on the wall and let him have it.
Yeah, and of course, Walker, he had that coming together with John Olsen earlier. He might be carrying some minor damage to that car, and he doesn't want to risk any more.
Well, that battle between de Turk and Pawlowski is not over, and you can see on your screen just how close he is, getting less than a car length behind now as we hop on board and see how daring you have to get to try and make passes in this car at this track.
Brilliant shot there coming through Dingledale corner. You've got to use all of the curb there to try and get the best run possible. Let's see if Pawlowski has what he needs here on the start-finish stretch this time. Getting covered a bit by de Turk, but might that have been a missed gear from Michael de Turk? Maybe not. He manages to stay ahead into Paddock Hill, but has he gone too deep? Is Pawlowski going to line it up into Druids?
It's a little far back to me, and yeah, that uphill braking, just not enough distance in a car that needs a lot of distance to brake for a corner. So back down and into the valley as they go through Graham Hill Bend. A lot tidier for Pawlowski that time. Could he set him up into Surtees? No, he's deciding not to. Almost looks like Roman's trying to set him up for a sure thing here because he's not taking the risky moves.
Oh, it's draft time. Down the back stretch up to Hawthorns, it's defensive from de Turk. He manages to stay middle of the road, keep Pawlowski behind for the time being, but again, a slightly better exit from the number 13. Almost nose to gearbox rather, coming down through these corners. And it's so stressful following another car around this section. Not only are all of the corners blind, but a little bit of a look again from Pawlowski. Starting to get impatient, maybe pressuring de Turk into an error.
I think he knows he's got something on his hands if he could just get a slip up out of de Turk. He must have different brake bias on that compared to de Turk.
Yeah, you saw how much ground he made up in the braking zone there into Jim Clark corner. And, I think there's definitely a bit more rearward brake bias there for Pavlovsky as he makes a bit of a mistake on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. Notice he's kicking the rear end out, and he did have some trouble with oversteer into corners early on. So, yeah, I reckon... Oh, no. That's a big crash there. That's the number 15, and that is Gary Quellen. He was running in the back half of the top 10. This looks like a heck of a coming together.
Yeah, Murakami making contact with him side to side, coming into Clark. Oh, it's already starting to erupt into Sterling through the banked corner, wheel to wheel, and it carries on. Here's where they're going to make the touch. They were close to Laust Olsen almost having a position there. Oh, and they didn't even hit in the corner. Oh, no.
Just a coming together into the braking zone, and once you touch the side of the tyres in these cars, you're basically sucked into the car next to you, and heavy contact into the barrier for Gary Quellen. Might be a sure retirement there. No nose left.
Just at the height of their speed coming together and off into the gravel, there's no way of stopping that car, unfortunately, which amazes me. I mean, these things feel frightening in the sim. I can't imagine in real life. I'll have to check to see if they had a non-championship race in 67, because I know they raced at Silverstone, but I'm pretty certain they came back in the B-spec back in 68 in this car, and I can't imagine just how brave they had to be to try and race those things around here.
Yeah, and there was no such thing as AstroTurf or ripple curbs back in those days. Goodness me, it's looking a bit claustrophobic there out of Paddock Hill Bend. And, we've been focused so much on these battles in the midfield that we've completely forgotten about the lead battle. It's over, basically. Look at that gap. Timo Vascalampi, he's had a couple of problems lapping cars because Togo Hisada has really drawn out that lead now. He's all on his own out front.
It's all part of the game in this series. Having to manage that traffic, and that's a big mistake out of Pavlovsky. Just touched the grass, tries to come back across, but it's too late. Tixier is going to sneak through into 5th position. A bold move from the 7 to try and take advantage, but it sticks.
Goodness me, good stuff there from Sebastian Tixier. Very opportunistic and got a freebie out of it too. We'll see if we can get this from blimp view. This is going to be quite a view. They make their way past the lapped car, Pavlovsky. This is an error that he could not have afforded to have, just catching the grass there on the entry into Hawthorns. The car goes away from him a little bit, but again, very well held. I mean, Pavlovsky, he's been making those little errors, but he's been recovering from them quite nicely.
Just about came back to the racing line, but saw Sebastian come in at the last moment, so he gets 5th. Roman down to P6. Ryan Walker joins them, so it's a 3-way fight for the top 5, and Michael de Turk finally gets to breathe a sigh of relief. Lap 18 out of 24 now. They are ticking away, and the opportunities are getting less and less, and as you mentioned, up at the front, it seems like it has died down to the extent that unless Hisada has a major mistake, we're not going to see much between the lead two. So we watch from the blimp as we come back down to earth now, and Pavlovsky is back on it. Let's see if he can cut those 0.5 of a second down and try and get back into P5.
I'll tell you one guy who will be happy to see these 3 cars battling ahead of him is Topi Kortonimi. His last lap was a 24.699, and all the other drivers set 25s or lower. Kortonimi really pushing it out there.
Had some good climbers as well, not just due to mistakes at the start, but either poor qualifying or lack of it. Don Good's gone from 30th to 19th. Randy Huff, who did qualify, has gone from 24th to 16th. So a few hard chargers out there who are trying to take advantage of quite a bit of issues for others around this track. But the number 1 on the front, not just because of the highest I rating, but he's also our current reigning champion. Going to have to settle for an 8th place. This will probably be a drop week unless he has some DNFs during the season.
Yeah, it's all about damage limitation for Kortonimi now. You mentioned Randy Huff. Well, I reckon we should take a look at what battle he's involved in. He's currently at the front of the 3-car train. He's got Rob Swindles and Matthew Maudsley right behind him, all vying for position as well. There they are. Going
to put a lap on Gary Anderson. He's going to stay off to the side. Nicely done letting all three through without any interruption. Little deep, though, into the corner for Randy Huff. That's going to compromise his exit. Swindell's got a good run. He's approaching. Does he look to the inside? This is a tough one to get done into Paddock Hill Bend. He sends it in deep, maybe way too deep. Can he get it wound up? He's got it. He is through into 16th.
Parked it on the apex, got some rotation in the middle of the corner. That's what allowed Rob Swindells to keep that position. Very nicely executed maneuver.
Thought for sure he was going sailing into the gravel there, but I think maybe a little early braking out of Huff made that look a little bit more dangerous than it was. Another fastest lap for Togo Hisada as he burns off the fuel in these already light cars, down to a 24.153 now for that number 4 machine. And as we come forward once again to Pawlowski, they've got a lot of traffic in here now. Eugenio Massa going to stay off to the left-hand side through Druids. And behind them, Ryan Walker and Topi Kortaniemi are getting ever closer. Now, we saw Walker give way to Tixier a little bit earlier. Will he do the same to Kortaniemi?
Kortaniemi not quite close enough to push a maneuver at this stage, but see how this one goes as Walker runs a little bit wide through Surtees. That allows Kortaniemi to gain another couple of tenths. And, oh, there we go, Walker. He didn't even try to fight that. He's given Kortaniemi that position.
Yeah, I think if I know Ryan, and I've watched a number of races with him, he's looking to just try and get a good finish here, especially in a car as tough as this one. So that is Topi up to 7th now. Remember, though, he started in 5th place. Yes, he's gained a lot of spots during this race.
Contact between De Turk and Tixier.
Oh, and De Turk looks to be the worst off for it as he comes back, and I think he's got damage after that off. Yeah, he's crabbing badly as he returns from Sterling. There's is it a touch?
Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Definitely a touch. Tixier, I think he saw the gap on the inside into Sterling's and wanted to go for it, but De Turk, he wasn't far enough over to the right to really give him the space, and rear-end contact, well, that's pretty much the death knell in this car.
Hard to recover from that. And did he bring it into pit lane? No, De Turk's carrying on. I thought his car was crabbing.
Yeah, interesting. Evidently not as much of a hard hit to the wall as we thought. He's still out there, still keeping himself going, albeit now down in 8th position. Still up 2 from where he started, so it's still been a profitable night.
We'll watch to see how the car drives from here, working lap times as things get closer between Tixier and Kortaniemi. He's wasting no time trying to make a pass up into Westfield Bend is a very difficult ask, but Topi almost fell up to it there.
Oh, goodness me. I think it's only a matter of time before Kortaniemi ends up getting by Tixier here, and he's firing it into every turn here, making up so much time on the brakes. Could this be a pass into Clark? No, I don't think so. Tixier with a little bit of a better run down clearways, but Kortaniemi keeping it tight, coming onto the start-finish stretch. This is going to be a move into Paddock Hill, potentially. Tixier, he'll be thinking about going defensive, but too late to make that decision now. Kortaniemi to the inside. Oh, and they make contact.
Whoa, he's going to go a little bit off too, and is Walker going to try and pass him back? No, a lift from Ryan behind him. Kortaniemi is in a hurry to try and make this one happen. Let's not forget that it was Sebastian and Topi that made the contact on the first lap that put them both back.
Take 2, anyone? We'll have to wait and see.
Oh, we got a little bit of a battle here into Druids. And this is the 12 off to the side, cutting back down. Robert Plumley almost having contact with Rasky for the 9th position. They get away with it. That's Andre Bruno. That's a lap car behind them, so that is not for position. Plumley fights back, looking to the inside into Surtees. Rasky wants to chop down, but there's a car there. No!
Oh, come
on. Come together.
Oh dear, I couldn't really see that move working out there. You've got to be very careful about how you plan maneuvers in this car, and Plumley now missing the bodywork on his nose. That's going to be quite heavy damage to that car, and yeah, he's slow. Looks like he might have to pull that one into the pits.
Which is a bit sad to see. It was looking like a great fight up until that moment. Kortaniemi back within range of Tixier. Last time he had a lunge into this next corner into Paddock Hill Bend. Will he do it this time? He's way too far back for this one. Even still, maybe if he gets a good launch up to Druids.
Pawlowski will be enjoying this, actually. The fact that these two have been fighting so hard, it's basically securing Pawlowski 4th place as things stand, and we've only got 1.5 laps to go, so not much time for these moves to be done.
So good news, bad news for fans of Michael de Turk. Good news is his pace seems decent. Bad news is it doesn't look like he's setting laps like he could before, so I think he is somewhat hindered by about 0.4 of a second per lap, it appears. But no hindrance for Topi Kortaniemi, despite the damage on his nose, down to within 0.3 of a second. Once again, a car going off. That was Don Good. I think simply letting everybody by, that or he made a serious mistake there into Hawthorne.
Potentially. But that's going to be far behind in the minds of Pawlowski, Tixier and Kortaniemi as they make their way through Dingledale up to Stirling's, and the gap opens on the inside. Tixier has a little bit of a look there at Pawlowski, but now defensive versus Kortaniemi on the exit of Stirling's. This might be a move coming into Paddock Hill again. Will Tixier go defensive and stay to the right? Looks like he was thinking about it, but Kortaniemi still too far back to really make a pass, but he's going to have another look here into Paddock Hill. Tixier gives him room. They almost make contact. You could barely put anything between those cars, but that was lovely and clean there. Tixier defensive into Druids.
Wow, survival skills are about for Sebastian Tixier. Does not want to let them come together for a second time. And at the same time, he has not lost ground to Pawlowski, but the white flag has waved for them. We are on the final circuit of this race. Hisada is already just about to the finish. In fact, we've got less than half a lap to go for the number 4.
Mistake from Kortaniemi. I think that battle might be over, but yeah, the number 4, Togo Hisada, what a performance it has been from him this race. He's only got a couple of turns left to go, and this will be the sweetest of victories for him. Finally, broadcast victory number 2 in the Grand Prix Legends Series.
And the first one on a road course for Togo Hisada. But I suspect that the sun is indeed rising for this Japanese driver who takes win number 2, and it's here at Brands Hatch in the Grand Prix Legends Series.
Brilliant performance indeed. Teemu Vaskilampi as well. He comes home in 2nd place with a fantastic drive there. Kept himself up in the top 3 all race. And Timo Karjalainen completing the podium, and it's on between Tixier and Kortaniemi. It looks like Kortaniemi might just get him.
It's a drag race to the line. Who's got it? As they come across, it looks like Tixier is there by 100th of a second. They actually made contact through the final corner. We need a replay of this one. Kortaniemi tried the over-under and just about pulled it off.
Well, we'll see how it happened here. Kortaniemi, he had a bit of a gap back to Tixier. I think Tixier might have gotten slightly held up by Pawlowski. Yeah, he did. And brings Kortaniemi right into the fold. Big defensive line coming into Clark Curve. Kortaniemi goes for the over-under.
I think there was just the tiniest of ghost contact between them and just about had it. What a fight that came out to be between the pair of them. You can see how much the car is bouncing there from that side view. And he has to brake very late for the corner, just trying to get across the line first. But that is going to bring us to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel with round 3 over. We're going to come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Brands Hatch. Round 3 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series saw Togo Hisada get a second win. It was by a decent gap over Teemu Väskälänpää, but early on, there was a lot of pressure from the Finn. Wound up being about 4.5 seconds between them, with Karjalainen another 3 or so behind to round out the podium. Then you get into some of the real action at the end, as Roman Pawlowski took 4th, chased by Tixier, who was 100th of a second ahead of Topi Kortaniemi at the line, both of them crossing side by side to try and settle out that top 5 position. Ryan Walker finished 7th, with poor Michael de Turk unable to recover after his little issue near the end of the race. He took 8th place. It was Miro Hraski who was 9th, and Laust Olsen, who did have an onboard here today, but sadly did not get to check in with all the action going on. He rounds out the top 10.
Robert Plumley makes up 2 places to finish in 11th. Despite a spin earlier, Bill Wright manages to recover to finish in 12th. Antonio Rice in 13th, lucky 13, with Jeff Saunders coming home in 14th place. Matthew Maudsley involved in the 3-way battle with Randy Huff there towards the end of the race, and Huff making up some very good positions there to finish in 16th. The last car to finish on the lead lap, Chris Murakami coming home a lap down, as well as Don Good, Eugenio Massa and Magnus Einarsson.
Andre Bruno was 21st. Then you get into drivers multiple laps down, with Gary Anderson 22nd and Gary Ho in at 23rd. From here, it's mostly DNFs and drivers who are just trying to get back to gain some safety rating at the finish to see the checkered flag of our 31 starters. And it looks like we've got our 3rd place finisher ready to talk to us, Timo Karjalainen, who started to keep up with those top 2 at first and then suddenly started to fall back. Timo, what happened that cost you some time? Was it traffic or just unable to keep up with the pace of 1st and 2nd?
Yeah, unable to keep up, I think, more than anything. I struggled with the consistency here, and felt like I had a good groove at the start, was able to catch the P1, P2, but then I think they got a little bit into the race and started hitting their marks more precisely. And I just made little mistakes, few tenths here and there, and then just lost them, and was never able to get it back.
This looked like it was a very tricky combination and caught many drivers out, with a number of incidents towards the back of the field. How comfortable did you feel at this place? Is this one that you enjoyed a lot, or did it really prove difficult?
Yeah, it's a little bit 50-50, I think, both of fearing of dying all the time, but then also like when you're not dead and you survive the corner, then you're like delighted, like, yes, I'm still alive. So it was hit or miss, but it's still on the positive side. It's a fantastic track for this car.
Yeah, that about describes it for me as well when I race here. Well, the good news is you're going to a British track that's maybe a little bit simpler and easier, Snetterton. Do you think we'll see you next round over there?
Might be. Keep your eye on me. Let's see what happens.
All right, we'll look out for you. That was Timo Karjalainen, who finished 3rd out there today in the number 10. But we've got Teemu Väskälänpää, another Finn, here on the podium, as Reese has caught up with him.
I have indeed. Welcome to the comms box, Teemu. Congratulations on your finish, 2nd at the end. Of course, battling very hard with Togo Hisada right at the start. Unfortunately, dropping off. Was that due to lap traffic?
Well, yeah, a bit. There was one overtake that cost me a lot, and after that I tried to push to catch Togo again, and then I kept making mistakes and dropped further back and almost spun, and then he was already so far that I just had to focus on keeping gap behind and bring it home.
Yeah, it's very difficult to push and gain time here at Brands Hatch, especially in this car. Noticing cars nearly getting airborne on the run into turn 1. How were you approaching corners like that?
Just routine, hitting brake marks and hitting turning marks and doing it same way every lap.
Yeah, we're taking
It's very
a look.
tricky, little offline, and you hit a bump, and then you're in trouble.
You certainly are. Sorry for talking over you there, Teemu. Well, nonetheless, a second place finish, very good for you. And with Timo also on the podium, it's some good results for Finland in the Nations Cup.
Yeah. I'm very happy for the finish. A week ago, Suzuka was my first race with this car, so I'm quite new with this car and only had 15 laps practice then. No, I had a lot of practice.
Very much so. How's your practice going for Snetterton? Have you thought much about next week?
For some weird reason, I like Snetterton, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but for some reason I like it.
Well, we'll see how you do next week at the 200 layout of Snetterton. Maybe another podium in your sights. Thanks very much for joining us, Teemu.
Thanks.
Well, Joe, that brings to an end a very fun evening, morning, night, wherever you are in the world of racing here at Brands Hatch.
Not a bad way to kick off 2022, I have to say, and I enjoyed it. But we've got to wrap up, and of course, we want to give a big thank you to the Grand Prix Legends community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Thanks goes to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. Thanks to the team today, Reese, Rob, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Also, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. There's a link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment while you're down there. Next race, as we mentioned, staying here in good old England. It'll be Snetterton on Sunday, January 8th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series, though, listed on the screen. And check those out, mark them down on your calendar, including in just a couple hours, we're heading off to Imola for the Camel GT series. That'll be at noon Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.